Hello, this is Rodrigo here from Frame Freak Studio. Today I have a special invited guest here. This is Mark Caballero, one of the co-founders of Screen Novelties, which is an amazing company that does stop motion animations. They have worked with amazing clients like Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, Paramount, and they have done a lot of amazing projects like, for example, Square, Bob SquarePants Christmas special and the Lego intro for Adventure Time. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So first, to get started, I would like to ask you, how did Screen Novelties started? What is the history of the company?
Okay. Well, the history of the company, it's a weird history because I met Seamus at school. We were taking classes at UCLA Extension, and we ended up, like, for about a semester, I recognized this guy that we ended up taking all the same exact classes, but we didn't know each other. And so one of the classes, we got paired up to do like basic camera moves class and stuff. And from there, we just sort of hit it off. We both realized that we both love stop motion and everything. And we're like, let's start making some cartoons. And so that's how we started. And what we did is, like, after another year, we continued at school, but then we decided to spend the money on making films, and that would be our tuition, because at that time, stop motion was, it really wasn't like an option to take in school. You can either take filmmaking or animation, and so we just decided to, you know, watch a bunch of movies and study it ourselves and stuff, and that's how we started making films, and one of the films got us into a film festival that, from there, we got hired to work on a show called Celebrity Deathmatch for MTV. And so we went to go work over there. And then in the meantime, we found out about Ray Harryhausen and doing The Tortoise and the Hare. And so we contacted him we contacted him to offer our services to help him finish the film as a thank you. And he said, okay. And so we finished our time at MTV, and then we worked on The Tortoise and the Hare, and then from there it just sort of spiraled out. We started getting job offers and everything, and that's when we brought in our third partner, Chris Finnegan, to sort of help us produce and write our stuff. And the original idea about Screen Novelties is we formed a company just in order for someone to know who they should write the checks to, because we only wanted to make our own films. Like, we weren't interested in doing things for other people, but we realized, like, oh, I like to wear clothes and I like to eat, so I guess we should make some money doing that. And so ever since then, it's sort of been a mix of doing our own original projects and, like, directing other people's projects for them. So, and that's how it started.
Awesome. And also, like, the Witch Doctor, for what I see, is like it's been the logo of Screen Novelties since the beginning. So yeah. How did you came up with that?
Well, that's pretty funny, because the logo came up because it's two different stories that go into that logo. The first one is when we did a film called Graveyard Jamboree with Mysterious Moe's. In the opening title, it says, Graveyard Jamboree with Mysterious Moe's, a toe-tapping screen novelty. And so when we were trying to come up with ideas for a studio name, we really kept on going back to Screen Novelties. And because we're big fans of old classic cartoons like Betty Boop and Popeye and Warner Brothers stuff, and it had a classic feel to it, so we decided to keep Screen Novelties as our studio name. And then the Witch Doctor logo came about because, like, right when we were first starting, Seamus came. Like, we decided to get rent a house together that had a garage that we can film out of and stuff. And Seamus was working at Kyoto Brothers, and I was working at a dialogue recording studio. And he came home one night and he's like, "Hey, I have this really great idea," and he shows me a potato. And I'm like, oh, like what, French fries, mashed potatoes, what? And he's like, no, like this is like really cool shape. He's like, let's make this into a character. And we're like, all right. And so that's where like this witch doctor character came out of, because we love like what Screen Novelties is about is embracing the mysterious and unknown parts of the world that people don't know about yet. Like, you know, growing up as a kid, you sort of have like that innocent view of the world of like how things exist that you don't know about, like ghosts and cryptozoology and, you know, Bermuda Triangle, stuff like that. And we love like the mystery of that. And part of it is like witch doctors and tiki and stuff like that. That has a mysterious element to it as well. So we're like, let's come up with the witch doctor. And so that's where it all started. And for a long time, he was just a character that we wanted to make cartoons out of. And then, you know, one day we just started playing around with a logo idea, and Shay came up with this doodle of the witch doctor as a silhouette. And we kind of just realized like it kind of works pretty well together if we kind of like box it around. So he kind of became that for a little while. And then we were going to go out and pitch the show, you know, as a series to like Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and Amazon and stuff. And after talking to them for a little bit, we realized that we can't really sell that character to anybody, because he's our character and he's what makes up Screen Novelties. Like, that character design is what we're about. Like, it's silly and it's got a little bit of a wicked side to it, but it doesn't take itself seriously. And we wanted to make sure the witch doctor sort of reflects what we're about. And we didn't want to just sell that away to anybody. You know, we wanted to sort of develop it into something different, because the witch doctor cartoons are going to be these sort of like stream of conscious, silly cartoons like the Betty Boop cartoons back in the 30s, where there's a little bit of a story idea, but mostly it's just sort of like there to entertain you and take you away from the modern world into this stupid fantasy world. Well, that's a long story, but yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you wanted to do this project like pretty much since you started, like so that brings me to the question of why now? Why didn't you try before? I imagine that it was because a lot of other things to do, but what made you to take the decision of doing it like today?
Now?
Yeah.
The reason why we decided to do it now is he's been in our heads for a really long time, but yeah, a lot of it was because we had just a bunch of work that would just get in the way, you know. And doing a short film, it still costs a lot of money. Like, whether you're making a feature or a short film or a TV show or whatever, the first minute always costs a lot. It doesn't matter how long it is. And there's a lot of work that goes into it. And even though Seamus and Chris and I wanted to work on it just by ourselves, we knew that it would take at least 2 years to do that. And we don't want to do that. And you know, that's part of it. So we just waited for a good opportunity to just do it. And last year was a good year for us because we had just finished Elf. We were really tired. And we said, you know what, we're going to dedicate this year to Screen Novelties. And so we spent our time developing all our projects. We have them ready to go out there and show the world and beg people for money to see if they'll give us some money to put it out there. But we always wanted to try Kickstarter, and we felt like Kickstarter was a good opportunity to get ourselves out there to people who don't know who we are, and get some money to be able to afford to do the things that we need to do with it. Because the Witch Doctor is a character where he is just this weird shape, like a pill almost, and his head, like when he talks, it's like, you know, he doesn't really talk any language. He just runs and, you know, all sorts of weird beeps and honks and whatever. And we want to give him a very frenetic way of movement, you know, where it really exploits the stop motion qualities of it, but it also just looks freaky and weird. And so what we're going to do is we're going to replace his heads every time he does a mouth movement. And the technology wasn't there when we were wanting to do it a long time ago, because you'd have to like sculpt each different head and mold and cast it and do all that stuff. And now with 3D printing, we're able to sort of sculpt one head on our computer and then be able to modify to all the different shapes that we want to from there. And then because we're the kind of studio that likes to exploit the raw, gross feel of what stop motion is about, we devolve the process of the 3D printing so it doesn't look slick and beautiful. It looks gross and disgusting and intriguing and mysterious. And so what we'll do is we'll take the heads and we're texturing them and we're painting them and we're being a little bit sloppy about it. So it has just sort of like that raw, feral kind of look to it. And we kind of feel like it's a great time to do that now because of the 3D printing process. And it's really fun because we're able to take this technology that keeps on coming in, and we're able to warp it into what we need it to be, you know. And it's usually like, what we like to say is like, there's a musician, his name's Spike Jones. He did a bunch of funny music back in the 30s, 40s, 50s. And his thing was, his logo was like, he would destroy classical music. That's what he would say. Like, he would take classical music and make a funny version of it. And so we like to say that we're like the Spike Jones of stop motion, where we like to destroy the stop motion side of it to make it silly and funny, you know, just because we like doing that kind of stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Something that came into my mind as well, I think when 3D animation came along, like there was a lot of news, like that motion graphics was going to die, that stop motion was going to die, and all that. And even, for example, the studio Laika, when they tried to do Coraline, they found a lot of problems because nobody believed their in a stop motion anymore. They said, no, it's better like 3D computer graphics. So what made you took the decision? Because I think a good, like a stop motion is really cool. I like it as well. But it's definitely, when I see it, like, okay, that's some serious work. Like, this is really difficult.
Yeah.
So what made you go for stop motion?
You know, that's a really good question, and I don't know if there is like an exact answer why I got into stop motion. I think, and it's weird because I think this goes across to a lot of people that are into stop motion, is they get affected by it when they're children. And the same thing happened to me too, where I would watch, you know, the Arthur Rankin and Jules Bass Christmas specials with Santa Claus Coming to Town, and I would also watch the Ray Harryhausen films like Seventh Voyage of Sinbad and Jason and the Argonauts and King Kong, you know, with Wills O'Brien. And there was something about, like, you know, when I was a little kid in the 70s, and that was a really great time to grow up because it was right at the cusp of computer animation, and the technology wasn't there yet. And so as a child, I was sort of forced to use my imagination to fill in the gaps, and not knowing how movies were made, specifically stop motion effects. And so when I went in and I saw these Christmas specials and movies, it was magic, you know, to me, because I couldn't, like, you can always tell when it was somebody in a gorilla suit, or you can tell when it's a puppet because the way it would move and stuff. And even though I was a stupid kid, I could still perceive that the movement on these stop motion characters was not natural. It was weird and magic and creepy at the same time. And so I was just like, what the hell? And ever since then, I would see things and I had asked, like, how is this done? And my brother would just say, it's animation, stupid. And, you know, I was like, I didn't, like, to me, animation was cartoons and stuff. And so I, like, whenever I saw anything that was stop motion, I would immediately watch it. It's like the combination of a toy and a monster coming to life. And so there's that attraction that it has, and that weird unearthly quality that stop motion still carries, that makes it really unique. And that's really why I like to do it, is because it's a weird little form of filmmaking that really shouldn't exist anymore. It really shouldn't. But people like it, and it works because there are people out there that feel the same way I do. And those people, some of them have a lot of money, so they're able to do it, you know. And if people like it, they'll watch it, you know. And so I like the idea that stop motion is still like this unique little form of filmmaking that is really labor intensive and hard, because it tests you as the filmmaker to see if you're really worthy of doing it, you know, or not. And it's not for everybody. It's a really difficult way of doing it. And I like that stop motion isn't so easy to make. It's just, it needs to always stay unique and weird and special, because that way it'll always keep those qualities that I told you about earlier, like where it's mysterious and creepy and disgusting and whatever. It's like, it needs to have that, because as a little kid, any little kid now, from back when film started, they're attracted to that weird atmosphere about it, you know. That's my idea of thoughts of it.
Nice. And also, what made you go to Kickstarter, like, and what was your experience with it? Because I see right now we're trying like to start the industry of animation in our country, and there is a lot of people who have this romanticized idea of Kickstarter, like it's going to fix all their problems magically.
Yeah.
And obviously it's not that easy.
No.
So I wanted to ask you about your experience in Kickstarter, and why did you decided to go there instead of, I don't know, other platform?
Well, the reason why we decided to start Kickstarter is mainly because you're opening yourself up to a larger audience than what is used to seeing you, you know. Because with us here in Los Angeles, we know we have the eyes of the animation community, but there's so much more people out there that could like our stuff, and so we thought Kickstarter is a good venue to get ourselves recognized by people that normally wouldn't know about us. And a couple of years ago, we were going to actually launch a Kickstarter for Krampus as a Christmas special, but we decided not to do it because a lot of different reasons, but mainly because we ran out of time to do it. Like, we were going to launch it before Christmas in order to capitalize on the Christmas holiday, but a bunch of our friends that had done Kickstarter, they said, don't do it, it's too late, wait a little bit to do it. So we decided to wait, and then as we were waiting, we got Elf, and so we had to put Krampus aside in order to do Elf. And then in the meantime, somebody from Kickstarter emailed us, and he was really like, he's like, hey, this is George from Kickstarter. Like, what happened to Krampus? Like, what's going on? And we got back to him, and we kind of told him like we wanted to hold off on it for a little bit and stuff, and we were doing Elf. And he's like, oh, that's cool. And then he came over to LA because he's in New York, and he visited us, and we became friends and stuff. And after Elf, we were going to launch Krampus as a Kickstarter, but then we decided to do something smaller to test it. And so we decided to do The Witch Doctor instead, as a short film, to see how the success was for that. And we worked with them, with Kickstarter. They sort of gave us some tips and stuff like that. They're great. They're really easygoing to work with, and they're very dedicated to every project that's on Kickstarter. And we kind of felt like it was a success. It's really, really, really hard. You have to plan to do a Kickstarter at least 2 months in advance. You know, you have to budget your project. You have to figure out your rewards, and you also have to figure out like how those rewards are going to be easy enough to deliver and produce, because of the Kickstarter budget that we brought, I think we got like 68,000 or something like that. 20% of that budget is going to go right back to the contributors, you know, to honor the rewards of the tiki mugs and the swizzle sticks and the shrunken head kits and all that other nonsense. So I want it. So the money that we got from Kickstarter really isn't enough to make a film, but it's enough to get us started, and it's enough to keep a small group of us together. And where like Seamus and Chris and I don't pay ourselves out of that money, we kind of use that money to buy supplies, and we use that money to pay a couple people to come in every once in a while to sort of help us out. So it's like, if you're going to do Kickstarter, don't expect to use that money to pay yourself. Just use the money for the project, and that's it. But it's like, once you have to prepare yourself, you have to like figure out all your social media skills, like get like every week prepared. You have to schedule out your weeks. Like, okay, I'm going to do an update every other day, and I'm going to have pictures, and I'm going to like, what can I do that makes it special, and who do I reach out to? And you can't just like go on Facebook and post like, oh, is this day 56 or whatever. Like, you have to keep on like finding new avenues of how to publicize yourself to people who don't know who you are. And it's just like, okay. And the way we did it with Witch Doctor was like, okay, we'll reach out to our Facebook friends and the animation community, and that's easy. But then we had to start an Instagram account. I had no idea how Instagram started, you know, and Twitter. I mean, I'm too busy to deal with that kind of stuff, but I do it anyway. And then it's just like that, and then reaching out to magazines and seeing if anyone's interested in doing that, and then also going into other groups, social media groups that might be interested, like the Los Angeles group or the New York animation, or like, I'm Spanish, so I like reached out to my Spanish family to like spread the word, and you know, trying to get everyone to like tell one other person about us and stuff. And then luckily, like Kickstarter worked with us as well, and they sort of helped publicize our project as a part of these other projects that were like pick of the, you know, Kickstarter pick or whatever they're called, you know. And so that's how it worked and stuff. And it was like, it's really, really hard work. So anybody that wants to do Kickstarter, really be prepared to spend the next 30 days once you launch on it every day for a really long time, every day, and have yourself planned out and be realistic with your budget. Because if you think that you're going to make $100,000 for making a short film, you're wrong. There's no way it's going to happen. You know, look at similar projects that have already launched and have finished, and compare yourself to those, you know, and realize that people may not understand why you need so much money, and they're always not going to understand why you need so much money, because to a lot of people, stop motion is like, oh, you just make a puppet and it moves and it's easy, right? You can just do it in a couple days. And like, no, it takes months and months and months and months. And so that's the general like thought process of the average person. They, you know, it's like me not knowing how to be an attorney. I just can't call up an attorney and say, can you, you know, I need to sue somebody tomorrow. Can you help me? Like they need to do their research as well and stuff. It's like every other job, you know, trying to understand how all that works. So, you know, my advice to people out there is make sure you are completely prepared for it, and you know, make a video and get your artwork ready and plan it out 2 months ahead. It took us it took us 2 months to do the Witch Doctor Kickstarter video before we went live, and I felt like we needed another month. You know, honestly, I would have loved to have had 3 months to do it, but we didn't have that kind of time to afford. So, but still, I'm pretty happy with how it came out. Like, it's hard to believe that people actually like us and stuff, because I just like to do what I do, and I never expect anyone else to like it, because I know that, like, I'm an odd person, but other people are odd as well, and all the weirdos came together to help us out, and we really appreciate that.
Nice. Also, uh, talking on the perception of other people, because I have seen like a lot of bad perception over animation overall, like in all areas. There have been people. We have a project. We won a prize like 2 years ago, and it was like a really detailed project. To be honest, we pretty much got ourselves into a huge problem because we thought like we were going to be able to do it easily, and no, it was like the hardest thing to do. And there are people who come to us like, hey, I need like a TV commercial like this project that you had. I only have like a $600 budget and I need it done in 2 weeks. And it's like,
Yeah,
this took like $30,000 and took
yeah.
us like over a year and 2 months.
That's the
And it was supposed to be 8 months, and it took us way more time.
yeah. That's an ongoing problem. Is that people don't want to spend the money that it really takes, and it's like $600. Great, I'm going to spend the next 6 weeks paying myself $100 a week. And that's $20 a day. So does that work for you? No, it doesn't work for you, and it doesn't work for me either. So, and that happens here too, where we get calls from big studios too. Like they're like, oh, we need 5 minutes of animation, but we only have $10,000 and we need it in 2 weeks. And I'm like, great, that's not going to pay for anything. $10,000 is a lot of money, but when you have to pay 10 people to pump out 4 minutes of animation, everyone's got to work overtime and stuff, and nobody gets paid right and stuff. And so there's a point where I feel like as an artist, you have to put a value to your time, and not only your work that you do, but your time spent as well. Because if you look at anybody else out there that is not an artist, like a banker, a lawyer, a baker, a garbage man, they get paid for their time. You can't, and there's a great video out there about this, but you can't go up to a lawyer and say, well, how much you charge an hour? And they're like, $500 an hour. Oh, well, I only have like $10 an hour. Can you just do it for me? And if I like it, then I'll give you like another $20. They'll be like, phew, like flip you off and like be done with you. And that's always been a problem with artists, is that they never, part of it is like nobody, the non-artists don't understand how artists work, and so they think it's just super easy, like you just get some crayons and you do it. But then the artists also have come to a point where they don't value their time or their work as much as they should. It doesn't matter how other people feel about it, it's how you as the artist should feel about it too. And so you have to really love what you do, but you also have to recognize that this is your livelihood, and it's okay when you're in your 20s and you're sort of like living with 15 people in a tiny apartment, but then after you turn 30 or 40 or 50 or 60, you realize like, oh my gosh, when am I going to retire? And I can't live off of soup anymore and stuff like that. And it's just sort of like, and it's been like that for a really long time. So I'm a big advocate for really putting a value in the artistry of whatever you do, because everyone deserves to get paid fairly, regardless of their job. It just has to be that way. Otherwise, you just can't support yourself. So, and is there an answer to that when people call you for work? No, other than explaining them the process, and then they're just like, yeah, okay, well, I just need this. Can you just do it for me? And you're like, no, I can't just do it for you. Because they work at a big company and their company pays for their insurance, and the company pays for, they get to work from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock and then they're done, and the artist works from like, the artist wakes up late, so they work from 10 o'clock to like 2 in the morning, and they get 4 hours of sleep, and then they wake up at 10 o'clock again, So, but it's a fun life.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, talking about this, what are the mistakes, the most common mistakes that you see, like people doing when they are starting animation studios or their own projects, or as a professionals? What are the most common mistakes you see them doing?
Um, you know, the most common mistakes is people starting a studio for the wrong reasons. Um, you have to know why you're starting a studio and what goes with it, and just learning from my own experience. Um, when you start a studio, and I'll use stop motion because that's what I'm familiar with, you you open yourself up to other people's suggestions and projects, and you also open yourself up to overhead, expenses that you weren't expecting to pay, like rent, insurance, supplies, you know, uh, utility bills, stuff like that. And so what I see that people do is they start a studio and they don't understand why they're doing it, because um, there's here in LA, there's like 6 stop motion studios. And I feel like there's 6 too many here in LA because stop motion is this weird form of filmmaking that you can't expect to make much of a living off of it. Like, there are some people out there that do it, but if you want to start a studio, then you have to want to do it to be able to not only make your own projects, but make projects for other people and open yourself up to be a freelance studio where people can bring in their projects. And what that also means is that you may have to take on projects that you don't want to do, but you have to pay for the bills. Or a director will come in and direct your crew and you to do their project, and you do it to the best of your ability and it looks really good, and they take all the credit for your hard work, saying that they came up with the whole thing and stuff. And so you have to understand, like, going into making a studio, you have to be cool with doing all that and accepting all that stuff. And I tell these kids, these students that come up to me and they say, I want to start my own stop motion studio, I usually ask them, like, okay, that's cool. Do you want to make your own films, or do you want to make other people's films for them? And they usually say, I want to make my own films. And I usually say, then don't start a stop motion studio. Be an independent artist, filmmaker, and when you need a bigger crew, find another studio that will hire it for you, so you don't have to worry about all the headaches that come with a studio. So that's usually a huge mistake with everybody, is like they have these delusions of grandeur that they're like, oh, I'm going to make a stop motion studio, but then they don't realize that it doesn't mean that they're going to make their films. It just means that they're opening up a facility for people to flock in and want to do their own projects, and for us, we get to work on our own original project once every 4 or 5 years, and we try to squeeze in a little project here and there, of not too long, like 30 seconds or something like that, so we can get our creative rocks off, So, and most of the time it's just, it's doing jobs for everybody else that you don't really want to do, but you got to do it anyway, and so I'm telling all the students out there, like, understand that, either go in, like, whether you want to be a director or an animator or a filmmaker and do everything, know what you're going into before you do it. But it's okay to make those mistakes, because when you're young, your brain isn't fully formed yet, and you're not able to make the consequentive decisions of your actions, and so you don't think about it, and that's good, because then it makes you bolder and you get to jump in there without thinking about the repercussions of all that. And that's always admirable as well, because that's what we did. Like our brain, well, my brain probably still isn't fully formed, but we went in starting a studio, not realizing that we were going to jump into all this other stuff. I wouldn't change anything. I'd probably, if I were able to go back into the past, I probably wouldn't do a couple projects I didn't like doing. But other than that, I still like how we did it because you always learn a bunch of stuff. So, that's a very common mistake for people is to start a studio. They get in over their head. It's too expensive for them to maintain, and they have to close shop, and then they lose a bunch of money, because of it. Or what happens is they get together with a bunch of friends. They start a studio. One person wants to be creative. The other person wants to just make money. And the other person realizes that we have to get work from someplace else. And then they end up hating each other at the end, and then they split up and then they're never friends again, and stuff. And so just got to really, really be careful about it and always stick true to what your personal goals are as an animator, as a filmmaker, as an artist, or whatever. Not that we're having any problems at the studio, but these are the issues that come up that I've seen in other places, and when I've talked to other friends that have had studios fail on them because they tried to start it, and stuff. And I feel very fortunate with Screen Novelties that I feel like we're successful in many ways as a studio, but it's not exactly what we're going to be continuing as. It's going to be, we're going to take the next step and just focus on our own projects and creatively spearhead our own projects, or take on projects that we're attracted to, and not take in the other jobs that aren't, A, aren't paying enough money, and B, that just don't work with what we do,
Yeah, and actually, those experiences that you mentioned, I have seen them not only in animation but in business as well. That people get together, and then at the beginning it works well because the idea is to get money. But
Yeah.
once they have money, all these ideas start coming up. Now that we have money, then like you say, now we have to focus on the artist. Maybe another guy wants to focus on doing even more money, and the other guy has another idea of what the company should be, and all the chaos happens. And in our case, I think it was I don't know, we were really lucky, and at the same time we didn't have many other options because our path has been oh, we're going this way, and then life comes, it's nope.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going the other way.
Yeah. And you just have to be I think the important thing is it's okay to let yourself sort of try different things along the way, as long as you're happy doing it and stuff. Because we're in 2016, we're so lucky to be here at this time right now, because we don't have to go out and hunt animals to survive and spend all day and wear skins over our bodies, to protect ourselves, and live in a cave and stuff like that. We have technology at our at our feet, and we're able to make our own paths now, and it's so much easier now than ever. You don't have to go to university anymore to learn a trade. You can just go on the internet and learn the trade that way, and learn for free and stuff. And the world is becoming, it's really cool. It's become a smaller place, and everyone shares the information through the internet, and that's super cool. So as long as you're able to be happy with what you do, that's really what matters, and that's everyone's goals in life now, is to be healthy and happy, and that's great,
Nice. Also, what is your point of view on over the same case, when people are starting to become a professional, or maybe starting in a studio or whatever? What is something that you think people should be putting more time into, but they are not doing it?
That's a good question. It's just sort of organizing is a big thing, and and finding time to be able to develop your projects, is really important, because it keeps you morally satisfied. If you have little projects that you want to test out and work on and stuff like that in between the bigger jobs. And it's also just important to know, like, it's not like when you start a business in a studio, it's not just about you as the owner of the studio. It's about everybody that's working for you as well. So you have to realize that everyone else is here to work and to have a good time, and you need to have a big picture about things, so make sure that your employees that come in, that you're friends with them and that you like them, and that you're not afraid to do what they're doing, and you show by example and leading by example and stuff. So that's one thing that I recommend people thinking about, like, can they be a good leader to other people? And if being a good leader means that you have to, like, not think about yourself, but think about everybody else. And you're the one that has the answers for everybody, creatively and emotionally. Because when you're leading a team, you're also dealing with a lot of just different personalities. And so people come up and say, Mark, I'm mad at Sally. And Sally's like, Mark, I'm mad at Freddie. And then everyone's yelling at each other. And then you're just spending your time, like, being a psychologist, trying to, like, counsel, like, it's okay, be cool, and it's just trying to get answers. The personalities, like, clash, and artists are, like, trying to get, like, 50 or 60 artists to work together is like, you might as well get, like a room full of monkeys running around to do one thing, because they're like, wow, look at this, or toddlers or whatever. They just, like, they look at shiny things and walk away, and you're like, oh, no, come back. And so you have to learn how to be a ringleader, and you got to know that you're cool with doing that. And it's not about, like, a self-adulation kind of thing where it's like, I'm such a good leader or anything like that, and have, like, this megalomaniac kind of personality. It's a very humbling experience, because every day you're challenged by your friends and your colleagues and your clients to have the answers to these problems that have come up to you. And you have to answer them quickly and professionally and creatively. And that's always really hard. So be prepared to, handle all pressure under grace. That's the saying, grace under pressure. It's true. You have to be a pro every time and not let your emotions get into it. So if you're a very emotional person, you got to get that stuff in check. Otherwise, it's going to just hurt you in the long run, and also not have, it's okay to have expectations, but they need to be realistic. You can't say, like, I'm starting a studio and a year from now we're going to make $1 million and stuff. It's not that easy, because there's so much that goes into it. And just understand that, what you see on TV and in the movies about, like, people making money right away, or what you read about, is a very small percentage of what really happens. And you have to be okay with that. And you have to be okay with just sort of, like, I'm going to spend the next few years just doing my own thing. And as long as I make enough money to pay the bills and have a little bit put aside for rent or whatever and wear clothes, then that's great. If you want more than that, then I would recommend not doing anything that's artist-based. I'd recommend going into something like, investment marketing, investment banking, or something like that. So, just understand those kind of things for the person that wants to start their own business.
Nice. Yeah, I have faced already a couple of that. Luckily for me, and unluckily as well, I'm, like, more of a rational, logical guy. And when I tend to face people who are too emotional, it's hard for me to get into their place.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating for them, because they, like, want to put their emotions on me, and it's like, I don't know what to do with this stuff.
Yeah, it's tough, and luckily, like, Seamus and Chris and myself, we're all pretty even tempered. like, I think of the three of us, I'm probably the more emotional. You know, I get excited too quickly, I get mad too quickly, I get happy too quickly, and they're like, dude, just calm down, you know, and it's, you know, so we work really well together because nobody in the 13 years that we've been together as a studio, we've never had a bad, like, really bad time between each other. You know, we'll always have debates and discussions, and sometimes they'll get heated, but at the end of the day, it's like everyone's just easygoing and nice, and we realize what we're into, and we realize that we're just making stupid cartoons. So we just look back at that and are like, okay, there's no reason to get mad over a googly-eyed buck-toothed character. It just is dumb. And so, you know, I feel very fortunate that I have Seamus and Chris on my side running this business because they're all easygoing and they're not selfish people, and neither am I. So, you know, we work out well together.
Nice. And what would be any advice that you should have for any artists who want to get into the animation industry, be it 3D, cartoon, stop motion, whatever? What would be your advice for them?
My advice is make your own film first before you get a real job, you know, and try to get that experience before you get hired by Disney or Warner Brothers or Nickelodeon or whatever is out there, because the chances of you having that opportunity to make your own film once you get a full-time job are very, very low. And so make your own film and get it done, and make it short. Make a short film. Like, do not make anything longer than 10 minutes. I guarantee you that you're going to have problems with film festivals. You're going to have problems like getting it finished. You're going to have problems getting people to help you for free. So make your own film. And we always have a rule about our films, is that they have to be too short to suck. So meaning that they have to be under 5 minutes. That way they're just long enough that they don't start to suck, you know? And we've always felt that way. Like Mysterious Moses is only 3 minutes. Old Man and the Goblins is 4 minutes. Tortoise and the Hare is 9 minutes. And that still feels too long. And Witch Doctor is going to be 4 minutes. And there's a reason behind it, because you're in and you're out really fast, and you just got a blast of like fantasy, and then you're done. And that's fun. And that's why you got to make your own film and get your idea out there, because once you start working for somebody else, then you're going to have to start like drawing or making some stupid yellow character with like stupid face and stupid design, and then you have to act like you like it and fool yourself that you're doing something fun. So before you go into that, make sure that you have your creative outlet. So that's my advice. And also, you know, really just enjoy what you're doing and challenge yourself to be better every time you do it. Like, compare yourself to your masters. You know, every day when I'm working, I compare myself to Jim Henson and to Ward Kimball and to Bob Clampett and to Chuck Jones and, you know, Ray Harryhausen and Rankin and Bass, all those guys. Like, I look at the crap that I draw and I'm like, oh, would Ward Kimball like this, or would he hate it? Or, you know, I never think that I'm as good as those people, but I do strive to be as good as them, because they're animation gods in my eyes. And you always have to improve yourself and not just accept what's there. You know, you have to make it look good, because if you don't think it looks good, or if you go like, it's okay, and then you just show it to people, that's how everyone else is going to feel, except for your mom and dad. Your mom and dad, they'll love it, but everyone else will be like, oh yeah, it's okay, cool. You have to challenge yourself creatively every single day, and you never stop learning. If you go into formulaic ways of filmmaking, or just accepting what's out there and thinking that it's cool and fooling yourself, then you're just going to end up being one of the crowd. And for those people that want to be a little bit above the crowd and and really be satisfied with what they do, then you have to push yourself every single day and really question creatively how you're going to make it better, and really criticize yourself in order to make that done. And I say that, and I know that I've done stuff that I put out there that isn't that great. And every time that I've done that and I'm like, oh, it's okay, it's good enough, I am haunted by that every single day when I see that crap out there, like on the internet. Like Celebrity Deathmatch, for example, I was an animator on that. And we all had a lot of fun doing it and stuff. But there were some shots where I kind of just like phoned it in because I didn't care about it or whatever. And like when I see that shot, I'm reminded of that moment when I decided to make that uncreative decision to let that specific frame go, you know. And so you have to try to perfect yourself all the time, you know. Or I see a commercial that we did that I wasn't necessarily a director of, but maybe my name is attached to it anyway, and I'm embarrassed to say that oh yeah, I worked on that stupid, you know, soap commercial or whatever. You know, we didn't do a soap commercial, but you know, like, I don't want to get my clients upset, but you know, it's just like, you really have to be careful of what you want to work on in order to be proud of it, because of the internet. It's going to come back and slap you in the face every time. So, you know, just do what is going to make you happy and challenge yourself creatively every single day, and make yourself better creatively every single day. Don't do the formulaic route, because that will get you nowhere. You know, not in an artistic way.
Nice. Thanks for the advice.
Yeah.
How is going the Witch Doctor right now?
It's going by pretty well. Like Witch Doctor, we finished right before Christmas, and so we took the Christmas break off to sort of like just breathe and sleep and stuff. And then January we kind of we had to wrap up some loose ends and sort of plan out our time frame with Witch Doctor. And then February we've started shooting stuff, and so we have we have about 50% of the set pieces built. The puppet's almost finished. We have a couple more puppets to make, and we've shot some live action parts of it already, you know, some puppeteer parts as well. And so we have about like 10% of it shot, I think, maybe a little bit more. So it's going by pretty well, and it's a process because you know, we have to rely on friends to sort of like be available at times to help us out, or you know, like, because we're running a studio, we still have to deal with like meetings and dealing with other potential projects and stuff like that. So you have to sort of like be able to juggle everything together to make it work. But we're really excited about it, and it was great. Yesterday we took some 3D stills of one of the sets that we're about to take apart and stuff, and we're like, wow, this is really fun. So, you know, and it really feels good on those days that we work on the Witch Doctor, because it just feels like we're getting that extra little bit done. So it's going by well. We're excited. We started building the head shrinking kits for the rewards, and we started the process of making the tiki mugs as well. And we already placed the order for the swizzle sticks.
Nice. Can't wait to see it done, because well, I was a backer as well. So.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's nice. Thanks. See, it's like all these people that we didn't know who they were or anything. They're just they came in and they were like our angels, you know, making sure that it feels. That's the cool thing about Kickstarter, is that like we had something like a little over 700 backers, and it's really neat to know that, like, wow, all these people really like us and stuff, and like our films like it are cool to some people. I don't know why, but they are, and you know, it's really humbling to know that there are people that I have no idea who they are, and they're complete strangers to me, and they know about my work, you know, and they like it, and I'm just weirded out by somebody actually liking what we do. You know, and just you know, that there are fans of ours out there that are rooting for us to make more things. It's kind of a neat experience to have that sort of thing. And then you have this sense of responsibility that you want to make them happy, you know, because they're sort of like your extended family now. And that's really neat too, because then I start to care about those, like the people that like us, our fans. I end up liking them too, because they're like, you like me, I like you, oh, you know, and I want to hug everybody and stuff, and like, you guys are the coolest, thank you. And you know, because they, you know, their hard-earned money and their time, you know, is important to them, and that's important to me too. And so for someone to take out their time or give me a whole day or a whole week's worth of their pay to support us, that is a truly humbling experience, and I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart that they believe in us that much that they would give us even $1. You know, it's really, really cool to know that people dig us like that.
Oh yeah, that's another thing I've seen as well, because I see many people try other things like Patreon or something like that,
Yeah.
and I see this entitlement that why aren't people buying from me or giving me that much money? It's like, dude, like you're getting money out of nowhere. Like even if you pay Facebook ads, pretty much you are getting like $1 per every cent. Like, how lucky is that? Like,
Absolutely.
we didn't have that 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
We're so lucky, and you should have so much respect that somebody wants to give you $1 just for your art.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's that's the cool part, is like, yeah, I never understood the people that have a sense of entitlement where they feel like they deserve something for not a lot of work, you know, like it's okay to have a sense of like expectation from family members because they have no choice, but anything else, like don't expect the world to drop at your feet and worship you. Just appreciate that they even are supporting you and stuff. Yeah, I've dealt with people that have a sense of entitlement as well, you know, where they feel like they're better than other people and stuff. And a lot of times, like, luckily, like, I've experienced that with a couple of our interns that we've had over the years. But luckily, like 99% of our interns that we brought in, which, you know, I think over the years we haven't had that many because we're very particular about who we work with. But 99% of those interns are so talented, and they came in enthusiastic and eager and humble and wanting to learn and being really nice and cool and easygoing and stuff, and having a sense of style to themselves already, that they were just like willing to jump in there and do the work. There is 1% of our interns that came in, like I think like 1 or 2 of them, that just thought that they were the shit and like they're so cool and like, oh no, I only came in to animate, and when are you gonna start paying me and stuff? Because we're a small studio, our internships are like for 3 months at a time, and then that's it, because it's not fair to make someone work for free longer, and we don't make a lot of money, so we can't afford to pay interns. And so when an intern comes up to me after like the 3rd day and they're like, I want to animate a shot, I'm like, you're never going to animate a shot as an intern ever, because you have to work for it. Like we have the old school way of work where you have to earn your way up to the top of the ladder. You can't just jump up there. You have to understand every step of the process in order to get to that thing. Even if they are good animators, they still have to learn, because I've seen animators that come in and they think that they're rock stars and stuff, and it's like, dude, how are you a rock star when you are pushing a puppet around, a doll, on a stage by yourself? That's not being a rock star. That's just being an animator like everybody else, you know. And so I've never understood that sense of entitlement that people have, and we're lucky enough that we don't have to deal with that a lot of times. And when we do have to deal with it a lot of times, if they're one of our employees, then they won't be one of our employees for very long. Or if they're just somebody that we have to deal with, we just sort of like laugh it off and don't pay attention to it, because that person will learn their lesson sooner or later. I'm not the one to teach them that lesson, but they will learn their lesson, you know. So it's just sort of like, you know, being entitled is a sense of insecurity, really. You know, it's just like they don't feel confident in themselves enough to be happy, so they expect other people to fill that gap for them.
I do have some kind of problems that sometimes people, I come up maybe to them like I'm too proud or like or exactly like that, but it's more like, okay, this thing that I'm doing it this way, and then they try to give maybe an advice or something like that, and they see that I don't take it, but it's like the reason why I'm doing something is because I don't know, maybe you gave me that advice or Timur or Fresiver or whatever. And it's like, and then there is this guy who I see that never has done anything, like trying to come up to me saying how I should do things, and it's like I'm not sure. Like, yeah, I do think that Franceiver knows more than you about this topic, so I'm going to follow this advice, ignore yours, and because I ignore theirs, it's like, obviously they get mad.
Yeah, I usually just tell them, like, I'm usually just like, oh yeah, cool, thanks for that advice. You know, I have something already set in motion, but thanks for the advice anyway, I appreciate it. And I usually just, you know, like just sort of, you know, listen to what they have to say, and sometimes it works, like maybe, but other times it doesn't. And, you know, I'm like, okay, that's cool, because, you know, I understand that they're trying to, they want to be part of it. You know, one time this guy's like, you know, you need to change your name from Screen Novelties to something easier to understand. I'm like, what's there not to understand about Screen Novelties? He's like, oh, it just, you know, you should just come up with something more modern like Spark or something dumb like that. And I'm like, well, you know, I like my name. I think it's cool, but thanks, I appreciate it. You know, so, you know, you get things like that all the time, and you just sort of like, you have to find the humor in that. Otherwise, you'll be like bogged down by all this nonsense that it just eats away your time and energy, and that's not fun.
Yeah. What would be last advice that you would like to give us, or any topic that you would like to talk about?
That's a good question. I mean, other than making your own film, it's important to sort of be your own person, like artistically, keep your style unique and not try to directly copy someone else's style. And what I mean by that is like, because like, you know, our style is a mix of, you know, silly drawings, but it's also like, there's a lot of Jim Henson in us, there's a lot of Rankin Bass in us, and Jay Ward and all that. And when I say try to be unique in your own artistic style, I mean, let everything influence you that's really cool, but just make sure that you're not directly copying it, you know, because I see a lot of people that are just trying to do Adventure Time style, you know, with the googly wiggly things and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, that's cool, but I've seen that in like 10 different resumes, you know, in the same week. Like, it's okay to be influenced by a certain style, but make sure that it doesn't take over your personal style as an artist. So that's one of my pieces of advice. My other piece of advice is stay in communication with your friends and that are artists that have a similar sensibility as you do around the world, because it's cool that we're starting to establish this network of like-minded artists around the world that is pretty amazing, because like now we're almost our own culture. You know, it's weird. Like, it's like cool. There's like Italians, there's Asians, there's Russians, there's stop motions, there's, you know, and that's really neat that it's like because of the internet and Facebook and social media and stuff, I've been able to meet all these amazing artists around the world that now I can visit whenever I go to that country, you know, and that's really neat. And that's another piece of advice, like stay in touch with those artists that are like you know, and that you guys have like a cool bonding, because it's just kind of fun and it makes you a happier person, you know. So that's my other piece of advice, like do whatever it takes to make you happy, as long as it's not hurting someone else. That's a really dumb, like, pious sort of like piece of advice, but it's kind of true, you know. Like you have to be happy, because if you're not happy, it's going to reflect in the work that you do, and all your work's going to be like, you know, kind of thing. Like you want to have fun with your work and stuff. So, you know, have fun with your work and don't act like it's a chore. If you're treating it like a chore all the time, then you need to reconsider what you're going to do. So,
awesome. So thanks a lot for your time and all your advice. Believe me that we are going to take care of it, because pretty much we are starting out. So this part of the show, of the interviews, is like a little bit more about us learning about how things are done worldwide, and also to share the knowledge to all the people who want to do this.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I'm really glad. Like, keep me in touch with what you guys are doing and stuff. And you know, the only thing I ask is be patient with us, because as you know, you reached out to us in like early December, and we just were so busy with Kickstarter that we're like dogs. Like after 10 minutes, we kind of forget what we're doing and moving on to the thing that's present. So it usually takes us a while to get back to people, but we do, you know, and stuff. And yeah, keep me posted on all your adventures and stuff, and you know, have fun while you're doing it and stuff, and don't worry about like having too much on your plate. Just let it just process and know that it's good, you know, things will work out the way they do, as long as you're sincere about what you do. So
awesome.
Cool. And thanks everybody out there that's watching or listening. Are people watching this interview, or are they listening?
I think both.
Hi everybody. Thanks so much for wasting your time on me. I mean, it's like an hour and 15 minutes now that you guys could have been doing something better, like sleeping or eating or something like that.
Yeah, but don't worry, you have a lot of hardcore fans here as well in Central America. So
well, thank you. What part of Central America are you in?
I'm in a country called El Salvador, but pretty much we have like fans from Mexico, Colombia, Chile, Argentina.
There's the Pixelato that was happening there, right?
Yeah.
Did you go to that? It was
what?
wasn't it? There was a film festival, an animation festival over there that happens, right?
Yes.
At the university?
No, we had one here called Pixel Awards.
That's it. Yeah.
We won. So
nice.
we are working that now. Like we're working the animation.
Congratulations. That's cool. I was a judge for that for like 3 years.
Nice.
Yeah, I worked with Kike. I forget his last name, but and a friend of mine, Sienna Mariana. Do you know him? He's from El Salvador.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a really, really good animator. Like, he's one of our favorites. And he worked at Slurry Deathmatch with us and Robot Chicken and stuff like that. He's an excellent animator. I should connect you with him and talk. You should talk to him as well, because he's amazing.
Awesome.
I've heard a lot of good animations coming out of El Salvador, so that's really encouraging to know that you guys are doing some cool stuff.
Yeah, I think right now part of this show as well, the purpose of it was because what I see that is happening in not just El Salvador, but pretty much the whole Latin America countries, is that we have like amazing talents, but at the same time the self-esteem of these people is really low, and they don't believe that they have talent, so they don't try anything. So it's like for us is also to show like, hey, look, like it's not that difficult as you are making it up in your mind. Like, it is difficult, but it's not
Right.
as monstrous as you have in your mind right now.
Well, you know, it doesn't change the older you get. Like, I'm still a very insecure person, and I still feel like I'm worthless, that I'm not a good artist and that I'm not a good animator. But I think, not all the time, I'm not like, oh, I'm terrible. I mean, but I always, like, it goes back to me questioning myself and my abilities as an artist or as an animator. And I think it's good to have a little bit of that to humble yourself and also to motivate yourself to be better, you know? But you can never be like so hard on yourself to the point where it debilitates you from getting anything done. If you don't think you're good enough, then make yourself good enough and do it, and don't think about it. Because here's a funny story. Like, when I was like 18, 19, I wanted to go to Cal Arts, you know, the art animation college here. And I didn't think I was good enough, and so I never applied. Because I heard these stories of like, oh, you have to like turn in like 80 pieces of artwork, and you really have to be really, really good, and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh man, I'm never going to be that good to get into Cal Arts. And so I didn't do it, and I went a different route because my insecurities prevented me from doing it. And then when I started making friends from people from Cal Arts, I'm like, oh man, it must have been really hard to get in, huh? And they're like, no, it was so easy. Like, I threw up on a piece of paper and turned it in, and they gave me an entry to get into Cal Arts or whatever. And I'm like, really? Because I thought it was really hard because I didn't think I was that good. And they're like, oh my gosh, Mark, you're crazy. Like, you should have tried. You should have done it. So, and looking back at it now, I realize like I was probably good enough to get into Cal Arts, but at the time I didn't think I was. I was already making my own animated tests at the time, but it's just like that. That's why, like, to all those students and artists out there, animators and painters and sculptors and filmmakers, whatever you are, just make the sacrifice, gamble on yourself, and see what happens. If you fail, that's okay, because you just learn from your mistakes and you do it over again. Like Old Man and the Goblins, that little black and white crappy film that we made. We started out with just doing tests, and it was based on an H.P. Lovecraft poem. And we didn't know anything about lighting. We didn't know anything about puppet making or stop motion or filmmaking or anything. We just bought a camera. We read magazines and we talked to people and stuff. And our lights were like, we went to the hardware store and bought crappy halogen lights and taped them onto broomsticks and taped them into the rafters of Seamus's garage. And we bought gels. We're like, I have a real gel. And I would like tape it onto there. And then all of a sudden, like 5 minutes later, I'd look, and I'm like, what's that? And the gel melted and the tape burned, and like bugs were flying into it, burning, and it smelled. And it was just really a harrowing experience, because we were shooting a 16 millimeter. We would partially expose it wrong, and we'd turn it in and spend $20 on like, a reel of film, and none of it came out. And so you kind of have to go through those mistakes in order to learn, because you're never going to do anything perfect the first time, or even the 50th time. It's never going to be perfect. It's just going to be to your satisfaction. And, and even that said, you can't be 100% satisfied with any piece of art that you do. Any artist is always going to be critical of their work. Even though I may think it looks perfect, like, Picasso sculpture of some weird like bull or something like that. I may think it's perfect, but he probably hated it, or maybe he did think it was perfect. I don't know. You just don't know. The human mind is such a weird thing. So,
yeah.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for being here and for giving us your time. I know you're really busy with everything that's happening. Like that's something we do have, and I think that's part of the reason why we got the interviews, because we do understand how busy other people are. Is we don't take it personally when they
Good. Well, I'm happy to do this because I remember when I was a kid starting out that I always had questions for people, and sometimes people wouldn't answer my questions, and other times people took the time out to mentor us, you know, like the Kyoto brothers or Harryhausen and stuff, and we know that their time is important, and it's I appreciate that, and so I want to pass that on to other people, and most artists want to do that too. It's about sharing information, you know, and advice to the younger generation to keep that art form alive, you know, because everybody's got a cool story to tell, and everyone's got a cool picture to show, and I want to see it all, and maybe I won't like all of it, and maybe I will, but I just want the opportunity to be able to see it all, you know.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your help.
Cool. Yeah, thanks a lot. And hi everybody, all you invisible people out there. I appreciate it. So cool, and keep in touch.
Yes, definitely we will.
Cool.
And thanks everybody for listening to us, and until next time.
Okay, bye.